We'll let people slowly trickle in. But in any case, let's get started. So welcome, everyone. I'm Rob Meyer. I'm going to be your moderator today. My favorite job here right now in all the things that I do is being an advisor for APIable. And so Alan graciously offered for me to be the side moderator while Alan goes through and explains what APIable is and why it's so important. So I'm more of the reformed API gateway guy. I've worked on API management, both gateways and portals, for the last decade or so. I've actually worked on 3 of the major API management vendors out there. But before that, I worked on all kinds of integration pretty much since the beginning of integration tools. So if you have any questions, I'm here throughout the presentation. I'm just not going to be talking a lot because you're here for Alan. So if you have any questions, feel free to chat at the bottom of the screen. I'll be watching on the right, and I'll try to answer what needs to be answered throughout the presentation, but we're going to save the hardest questions for Alan. With that, let me turn it over to Alan so that we can get started.
All right, thanks a lot, Rob. I'm Alan Canava. I'm the CEO and co-founder of APIable. I'm more the API portal, API product guy here. And yeah, let's kick off with telling you why we started APIable. I'll give you a little bit of a background to it. Started APIable with my co-founder. We originally met around about 8 years ago or so on an API program in Switzerland. And what we were trying to do there on that API program was we were seeking to grow the number of partners and customers that we had. So, and by proxy, the number of developers on the platform. So the main thing was joining the API economy and growing exponentially the partners, customers, getting more revenue for the organization. This is how we were judged within the organization. But we were frustrated by the developer portal that came bundled with the API management system. So this is a common problem that when we listen to customers, we get the same feedback that it's not quite adequate for needs, right, to join the API economy. We also eventually got some pressure from the security team because we had a PHP Drupal solution at the time, and we were told to take it down, right? So then it came to this point, we needed a new developer portal, API portal. And so we looked at the options, and at that point in time, there were no options, right? You had to build your own, right? So that's what we did. So fast forward 9 to 12 months, $100,000 later, and we had an API portal, which was good. It was a good portal. But then I went to my next company after that, so I moved here to Finland, and lo and behold, found the same story again. The API portal that came bundled with a different vendor still wasn't good enough, so I ended up building again an API portal. This time slightly different because the organization had multiple API gateways. So in the end, we had 3 API developer portals. So not optimal for a developer when you have to log in 3 different times on 3 different portals. So I said, okay, well, I've had it with building API portals for every company I go to. So I may as well found APIable, and there we just concentrate on building API portals as a service so that you don't have to build your own API portal. So that's the point. So let's kick off this webinar then. So we want to build out this Amazon API gateway in under an hour, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to first of all go to space. So here we are, we're at NASA, and we're going to, first of all, look at this API portal that we're going to have a reference. So I should probably call this a developer portal. This is a pretty standard developer portal. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It works, and that's fine. But when we land here, the first thing we see is that, okay, it's very technical, right? if you're a developer, it's 100% fine. But as we kind of like scroll through, first thing is generating an API key, which is authentication and rate limits and so on. So if you're a developer, 100% in the right place. But what we find when we speak to customers is that the developer isn't the only person interested in the APIs. We often find that it can be a business manager within your partner organization or your customer organization who is looking to integrate with you to get the value out of your APIs. And so what we like to do at APIable is treat the API as a product, which I'm sure you've heard many times. And that means understanding, okay, who is the decision maker on who's going to use the API. And it might be a technical person, or it might also be a non-technical person. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take this quite technical side. We're going to specifically take this picture of the day, and we're going to rebrand and rebuild this this API within APIable, so you get an idea for how it runs. Plus, space is cool. Everyone loves NASA, right? So this is good. Here's one we made earlier. So just a caveat. Oracle is here, but we name all of our demo portals after Matrix characters. So it has nothing to do with I think they're in Texas, aren't they? Anyway, this is just to give you an idea. Portal I created, again, took me about an hour, probably a little bit less. I did this as a reference, so I knew what I was doing in this demo. I'll go ahead and quickly kind of now register to this one. Of course, I'm logged out. Let's see if we can get back in. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to register to a free plan quickly, just to give you whet your appetite for what's to come. I always try and follow a same naming convention. 23.1. Okay. Okay, so now I'm subscribed as a business manager or developer. I've subscribed to an API product. I can complete it, and I can get an API token, right? So that's ultimately what we want to have achieved by the end of this demonstration, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to start with a vanilla API portal. This is what you get out of the box when you build build an API portal with us. You get this with a couple of API products, so you can play around a little bit. And this is one we have here. This one's called Smith demo. So this is a vanilla one, and we're going to get straight into the interesting stuff. We're going to apply our NASA theme to this one. So starting off with the general settings, we aim to get as close to your brand as possible, right? So we allow you to change your logo, for instance. I've got this lovely NASA one prepared here. So I'm going to go ahead and use this. So we have the NASA logo, if that's uploaded. I did pray to the God of demos that this would go cleanly today. So hopefully it did. Let's save those changes. So maybe also just check that I'm logged in. There we go. Okay, the NASA logo is come there. You're going to upload the favicon as well. I should also have a favicon. Here we go. Upload that favicon. We're going to use this one. Okay, great. So now we've got the logo and the favicon uploaded. So we're already looking pretty good. I have the possibility to change my face, which is good or bad, depending on what you think of my face. So here we go. I can add a different video, right? The reason we're adding a video here is that we find that a short video introduction to the API can be a little bit more brain-friendly. Again, especially if it's a non-technical role, you might want to kind of explain from a business perspective why you're interested in the APIs. Okay, great. So now we've got this next section, which is this banner across the top. I'm going to go and flip out this current hero image for my lovely, lovely NASA image. Here we go. Using this one. Okay, we're already starting to look better now. Discover our products. That's the text that appears on this button. I think that's fine for now, so we can keep that one. That's your call to action. And one of the main things, everybody has a marketing department, and they give you like a brand guideline on what you should be doing. So we're going to go ahead and just take the one from NASA, like this. And I'm going to use the same one for the secondary button in this case. You know, everyone has a different different style, and you have to just like look at your brand and say, okay, how should this look? Set the text as well. We're going to take all this from the NASA style guide. Merely there with the colors, secondary color. So you can see that on the right hand side, as I'm going down and I'm making changes, you know, it is updating here to you know, get that look and feel. And lastly, I'm going to set the hero background to more of a NASA color as well. Just skip those last two because that's the transparency. Okay, so I've got that. I'm going to make it slightly more opaque. I'm going to put it about here somewhere so that we have a little bit of the background poking through. There we go. So that's now we've basically got the colors, typography. So we have some font families here. It can be that you have specific fonts that we can talk about, but in this case with NASA, we're going to choose Public Sans, which is the closest to their font. Buttons, we'll keep the text color, but we'll make them rounded and flat. So that's a little bit more in line with the guidelines from NASA. So lastly, we've got a few texts we can change here. The rest is in the Localize, which is our localization tool. And we'll just go ahead and change some of these so it's on point with NASA. So you're going to say innovate with NASA APIs. Okay, there we go. I'm going to set the hero body, and what we're trying to do here is we're trying to give a friendly introduction to the API portal so that people understand, okay, more or less why we're coming here. So this is nearly done. Okay, good. So I've also set the text on the video here. You know, if I didn't want the video, I can toggle it on and off, etc. So we've already, you know, you've seen in the space of, I don't know, it's like 4 or 5 minutes. I have the theme set. So if we go across back to Smith now, and I refresh this again, pray to those gods of demos. There we go, done. Right. So I've just saved you 9 months. But yeah, joking aside, let's leave the theme there. We're quite happy with that. Now, one of the things that you guys are most interested in is how do we integrate into the Amazon API gateway, right? So just to talk a little bit about the gateways, first of all, here you can see we allow you to add multiple gateways and from different vendors, right? So we have a couple of examples here, Amazon and Kong. I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new gateway here. What we find is that when customers come to us, they don't just have one gateway. They have typically 2 at least, right? And many reasons for this, right? There's several reasons. I mean, the most basic one is maybe they're migrating from a legacy API gateway towards something more modern, maybe the Amazon one, for example. And during that transition period, they want to support both gateways, but only provide one experience to the developer going out, right? So that's where we, that's the gap we saw in the market. So we said, okay, we're going to allow you to create multiple API gateways. But of course, we're interested today in the Amazon API gateways, what everyone is asking for. And so we're going to go ahead and set that up now. On the left-hand side here, I've got my instructions. So I can scroll through these. Not many instructions here right now. It's actually pretty simple, right? It's pretty simple because we did a lot of work on my CTO, Alex. You know, I think his beard went a little bit more gray, not as gray as mine, but it went gray with this one. So we followed the recommendations from Amazon. and that is that we're using these roles within AWS to connect to your API gateway. So let's do this now. Let's say, okay, we've got a NASA API gateway, right? So just give it any kind of a name so that you can find it later. Important is that you select the region where your API gateway is, right? So if you're used to AWS, you'll use this lovely list of API gateways. So we want EU Central. So I think maybe I went past it there. EU Central. Yes, got it. Okay, so this is where my API gateway is. When it comes to the role, we put the instructions in here, so you can click here, which opens the Amazon instructions on how to create a new role. If you're comfortable with Amazon, this is really easy, right? You're going to copy the profile here, and you're going to go to Identity and Access Management, and you're going to create a new role. I did this just to save us a couple of minutes, but that's really all it was. It was a couple of minutes. I gave it a name, API-able NASA role. And here in the access of the policy, I pasted that stuff there. That's it. Really simple. So, your configuration is taking a couple of minutes. What we want is this ARN, right? Again, this is the, we spoke to a lot of Amazon solution architects, and they said, okay, this is the way to go. Because when I use the role rather than getting an actual, key, an actual user in the IAM, I only get very short access to the API gateway, right? So the token we get is only active for a few minutes, and then we lose access. So if you want to sort of revoke access to the role, then we don't have any more access to your API gateway. So that's it in terms of Amazon. We have one extra thing here, which is authorization. Native means the API key coming from the Amazon API gateway, right? That's the standard. That's where everyone's using API keys, right? Unfortunately, they're not really secure. We have one customer who is, providing weather data. API keys are fine for that, right? But you have to understand that if you have very sensitive data, you need to be securing it, okay? So you need to be wiring up some kind of OAuth server. And luckily for you, we've saved you a lot of time here because we've built that OAuth server, which is connecting directly into AWS. So the instructions are a little bit longer, but not much, right? So we effectively say, okay, we give you a Lambda function, which you can download from here. Just click here, download it. We tell you where to upload it. And that's pretty much it. You set some environment parameters, so we build those for you here so you can find them. And then it's deployed, basically. You add an authorizer within the API gateway, and you're good to go. So if you got like a good configuration owner, they're going to be doing this in like 10 minutes, right? It's not really that bad. We're no code, so you don't have to worry about writing any code. We wrote that for you already. And we support it there. So cross the fingers when I click the test button, we're connected. Okay. Just to prove I'm not making it up, let's choose something weird like US ISO West, wherever that is. Unsuccessful, right? It's unsuccessful because our gateway isn't there. It's in the EU Central, right? So that's where it is. We're going to go ahead and save those changes. Voila. Have a third gateway here, which is another type, Amazon. That's API gateway. Awesome. So let's move on then. So we've got the gateway, we've connected it, we've branded the portal in our colors, and this is already after 10 minutes or something like that. So we're doing pretty well, actually. What we're going to do now is we're going to create a new API product. Okay. First of all, let's get these demo products. We put these in simply so you can get an idea for how it works. I'm going to deactivate this one. And I'm going to deactivate this contracts one as well, because we don't need these, because we're going to go ahead and create a new product. This is Astronomy Picture of the Day API. I'm going to fill a few things in here, and then I'm going to talk to you about, okay, what's going on here, right? So we're going to give it a title. As you can imagine, this is all about creating a product for your API consumer that they can understand. So at this level, we're trying to not get too technical. We're trying to, again, product thinking it might not be a developer, or it might be, in your case, the developer you're trying to talk to. So you can change this however you want. We've got a lovely image for this one as well, if I remember rightly. I think it's this one. There he is, or she is. And we'll go ahead and upload and use this one. Okay, so now we've got a lovely picture as well. Pictures paint 1,000 words, I think is the saying. So giving even the API title is understandable, and an image which describes it is pretty good. Let's dig into one thing here, which is very important: visibility and audience. So we split these two out. Originally, we had them in one, but we were quite constrained by that. By visibility, we mean, is this an open API? Are you comfortable just having it out there in the internet, right? So open banking APIs, right, that everybody should see, find my ATM or wherever it sits, visible in the internet. You want people to find them because they're open APIs. The alternative is a hidden API, right? So the API is not available on the internet. You must be logged in, right? You must be logged in order to see that. What we typically find is that if the visibility is set to hidden, we're on the approval group going to set the registration as requiring approval first, right? So we'll try and show you that a little bit later if we have time. But typically, you're trying to prevent competitors, from seeing your APIs, right? So you could have some which are open, you can have some which are hidden. Audience is also important. We're effectively saying here is that, regardless of if they're logged in or not, is this thing appearing at all in the product catalog? Right? If it's public, it means that it's available in the product catalog for people to request access to. If it's at the partner, that means that you must create a subscription on behalf of the partner and give them access, right? So it could be that this is something that you don't want anybody else to know about. It's just for specific partners. You could be creating products for one partner if you wanted to. For example, one thing we're going to add here is private as well, meaning that everybody in your team can see the API, but no one else can. So that's coming soon as well. So that's a little bit about that visibility and audience. Very happy to hear your feedback on, what you think of that. Yeah, so that's good. So good, I'm already looking pretty good here. It's not an active product yet, so you can't see it. I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick save here. Why not? And then we're going to move on to marketing. We're going to add some marketing features here to make the product stand out a little bit. Again, what I'm trying to do here is, in this case, non-technical features. I'm trying to say, okay, what is the value proposition for using this API? And I'm going to go ahead and just create like 3 features quickly. Upload this image. I want to use this one. And now I want to the changes. There we go. So it's not active yet, so I can play around with these before they become active. Let's put another couple in very quickly since we have them. Yeah, so I mean, every image explained, and I'm giving it some information to say, okay, what is this feature about? I'm giving it a feature. I'm not getting too technical. And I'm going to go ahead and upload this one. Use this one. Yes, some pretty images, quite big. And let's do one more. Okay, now this feature is maybe a little bit more technical in nature. You're describing, okay, many downloads can you do per day, right? And here we're saying, okay, up to a certain amount of downloads. And this feature is maybe, getting a little bit more technical. Okay, there we go. So we got the 3 features. Okay, I'm going to toggle all of these to active, like this. So now they should all be active, right? I think I need to do a refresh here. And voila, there they are. So there's my 3 features, right? So this is a tool, we call it marketing, in order to help you make your APIs more brain friendly. And you should be thinking, in terms of API product management, in exactly those terms, right? How is this API going to be described, or this set of APIs going to be described? We have the 3 standard menu items that we saw before: details, plans, and documentation. I'll come back to this to add another page that describes it more later. But now we'll go across to the product plans. And the product plans is really something that started as quite a small thing and then just grew and grew as we went along. I'm going to create a couple of plans. One is a free plan, and the other one's going to be a chargeable plan. So let me just put some data in here, and then I'll talk it through for you. So we're going to give it a bit of a description. Okay. So before I upload the documentation, just to explain what we mean by plan. So plan isn't necessarily monetized, right? It doesn't have to have a price tag on it, although it can do. You can see that here under monetization. So we'll go into these in more detail in a second. But it's really a container for APIs, right? So again, we'll look at that. We'll pick some APIs from the gateway. But what we love about the plans is that they're really customizable. You can do a lot of different things with them. So here we have a classic free versus paid case, right? You can have different plans, which is small, medium, and large. Or you can, for example, say, have a sandbox plan, connect that to a sandbox API gateway. Similar APIs or same APIs, but pointing at a different environment, which will result in you getting a different API key from a sandbox and a production environment, for example. Could also be that the sandbox requires 0 approval, whereas access to production requires approval. So we'll step through those in a second. I'm going to upload the documentation for this product right now as well. This is one we created because NASA didn't have any open API specifications that we could find. So I've uploaded the documentation. We have a story that's in development right now to actually pull the documentation from the API gateway. So that one should be coming soon, hopefully, Peter. So that's there. But for now, I'm just going to save that documentation. Let's do another quick save as we go along. So now I've got a plan, which is basically a free plan. I'm not going to set any kind of barrier on the subscription length. You could say, okay, subscription to these APIs is only valid for 6 months or something, however you wish. See monetization. It's a free API, so I'm not going to monetize this one in this instance. APIs. Okay, again, this is one of the things you want to see, right? So we created that API gateway earlier. Now we're going to select that API gateway, and it was this NASA one, wasn't it? Yeah, here we go. So what's happened here is that we pulled from that API gateway a list of all the APIs. So we have 2 APIs, and we have 2 stages. So prod and staging APIs, right? So what I can do here, and this is the beauty of what we've done, is that I can say, as a product manager, I want to have 2 or 3 APIs within this particular plan. So the free plan might only have 1 API, for instance, and it might be, let's say it's on the staging environment in this case. Could also be, let's go crazy. Let's add the staging API for Mars weather as well, right? And then when we create the commercial version, we'll do that on the prod environment. But as a product manager, you've got the complete flexibility to package your APIs in such a way to achieve a use case for that particular case, right? So you can mix them. We'll also see within the Amazon API gateway later how this is saved, right? Because we always loop it back later on. So let's save that one while we go along. Where else can we do features, right? So I'm going to go ahead and create some features. So what we mean by features at this level is they're not they're nothing to do like marketing, but they are actually to do with the pricing table or the plan that we have. Okay, so I'm going to put some hourly limits in there. Again, this is then more of a technical feature, I would say, but it's absolutely valid to say, okay, how that is. I'm going to create another one. Let's just refresh to see that one's not coming. Okay, we seem to have some problems here, but there was always going to be some kind of demo effect. Let's see if we can get this one here. Okay, one last try. Okay. There we go. Okay, maybe I'm just a little bit slow today. But let's bang in a couple more features on this free plan, right? So everyone loves space biscuits, right? So we'll put some space biscuits in and we'll say, okay, you sign up to this one and you get 100 free space biscuits. Why not? Okay. So now I've got, you can see here underneath the table, which is being built. So you can see, okay, with these different plans, okay, who's getting access to what, etc. Approvals, free plan, I don't need an approval, right? Limits, yes, we want to set a quota. We want to say, as we said in the, oops, I think we want to set per day. I think it's like 300 calls per day. Set some random throttling and burst as well, right? So we'll see these in a little while on the system. Okay, so that's 1 request per second, etc. Let's save these. So this plan, I think, is starting to shape up. So let's go back and create a second plan, which will be slightly different. It will be to do with like commercial. You call it large, you can call it whatever you want, but here we're going to call it like commercial plan. And again, try and just quickly put this stuff up. We'll put the same documentation, but you know what? I could put a completely different set of documentation here, right? So because we've selected, or we will go ahead and we'll select different APIs now, for example. It could be that the documentation is just a little bit different or a lot different, right? So if I'm adding more APIs in this commercial plan, the developer is going to be presented with documentation which is tailored to the plan, right? So they don't have to go through pages and pages of documentation trying to work out how to solve this use case for the APIs. They get really like targeted documentation that, you know, if they follow that documentation, they will implement it correctly. So there we go. So we've added those. Again, we won't set any subscription length. Commercial one. So we're going to set a flat fee of this billing cycle being monthly, and we're going to set like, I don't know, 10 euros or something. So we've now set the okay, there we go. So we set 10 euros for this API. Again, I'm going to select the same gateway as my NASA gateway in this case. This time I'm going to select prod APIs, right? Just to keep them a little bit different. And yeah, so we have a couple more features now for this commercial one that aren't available in the other plan, in the free plan. So we're going to go ahead and add those now. Let's see. High resolution images, right? So in the commercial plan, you're going to get like higher resolution images, not just the standard picture of the day, but you're going to get something, you know, more. So we're going to go ahead and add that. I've still got this gremlin. Okay, there we go. Coming in there, and there's also going to be like a commercial license for this one as well. Commercial license. All right. There we go. I'm going to make this one here commercially available and this one commercially available. Good. Okay, so underneath now I have this feature plan table, which again, making it brain friendly. So it can be a business manager, a partner, a customer, someone who's not necessarily that technical can get, an overview in a way that they're used to seeing it, which is like, these pricing plans there, which is good. On a commercial plan, we want to approve them before they get access, right? So go ahead and create an approval group. We'll call it, I think it's capitals, NASA managers, like this. I'm the only person in this organization, but you could have many more people in the org. So you're going to go ahead and just collect those guys in there and then save it. So I have an approval group and I've set it to me. This means, this means that whenever I subscribe to this API product as an API consumer, somebody in this group needs to approve it, right? The limits for the paid version were much higher, right? So you can go crazy. You can go like, 10,000 per day, for example, maybe with no throttling. I don't know how you want to do that. And there we go. So that one is now done. I think the features are there, etc. I'm going to make this one active and save it. Let's go back and look at the free one as well and make that one active. To make it a little bit easier, we're going to also set an approval group. The same approval group on the free plan, which is maybe not something you would normally do, but we'll do it just for the demo so we can see the approval running a little bit later. So there we go. So I think that was like, the meat of that. So creating the product and the plans. We quickly create a new page that we might want to add to this product called onboarding and just give it some text. So what we're doing here is we're giving the product manager the possibility to describe the product a little bit more, right? So I've just stuck a ton of markdown in here to say, okay, whatever you would want to say as a product manager. It's also possible to, make the page publicly available or not available, etc. I'm going to go ahead and publish it and save it so this new page is published. I can also have like links, not necessarily product, but I can have links to external pages. So if you want to reference an external page, when I've created a new page, it's a markdown page, I can hook it up somewhere in the navigation structure. So I can have it at the portal at the top in the main navigation, or I can stick it in the footer, or in what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to actually attach it to my product as a new menu item. I'm going to go here, I'm going to say onboarding, I'm going to say how I want it to appear on the product. Again, this is this use external link stuff. But that should work there, okay? Let's make this one active, save it. Okay, good. So we've got our product. Went kind of quick, hope you can keep up.
But yeah, and actually I wanted to jump in, Alan, and just ask kind of two questions, because if I were, I could see as I'm going forward building my own portal, I might look at the first part, which was creating the look and feel, the tailoring, the branding of the portal. That might cause me to do some custom pages, some ECM integration, pretty traditional, but I'm still kind of operating the same way. For the integration with the backend gateway or gateways, now it's getting a little harder. I'm writing a little more coding, but I could still kind of do it the same way I'm used to doing it. But you just built an API product outside of the API, outside of the gateway. This changes things, and it changes what a product manager does. It reminds me of when we first ripped policies out of the API and started figuring that coding and putting it in the hands of at least one other non-developer. And so I'm curious, from your perspective, as you were building out the product, what made you do this? What made you add this notion of an API product, and how the the product manager goes through and builds an API product.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think, well, number one, the developer portals that come from the API vendors were done before we had the concept of product management for APIs, right? That's just the reality of it. So having the pain working, my previous two companies of not having products there, or having a fancy image and a title is not enough to call it a product. We need more tools available to us, on top of the API gateway, or over the top of the API gateway, where we can define how these things should be. And again, working on different projects to get to that point. After you've installed your API gateway, you've got your API gates running, you still need to spend 12 months, right? You want to use monetization. Okay, well, that means I need to integrate to Stripe and do this and that. So, it's really the mission of APIable is that we cut you down from like that 12 months and building your own portal to, within 1 hour or 1 week, whatever, getting those API products out the door.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost like it was an early experiment in that your product manager, as a product manager, you said, what could I put in my own hands so that I could do the self-service rather than having to talk to a developer and waiting for weeks for those changes to come out the door. I think that's the same thing that happened with policy management.
Right.
I do think, though, it's going to take some time for people to have that aha moment that this is actually how an API product manager works to really achieve API first, and also to do this API consumer onboarding the right way, like to present APIs in some combination with some plans the right way to accelerate and grow adoption of those APIs for those consumers that they're targeting. So it's I feel like we're going to wrap our heads around it a few different ways. I saw Eric, who's on here, starting that thread a week or so ago. Same kind of question about API products versus APIs, and the pluses and minuses. So hopefully there are a lot of great discussions coming out here. The second one was from Marjuka, who is asking about multi-stage API portals. You showed multi-stage plans exposing different stages of APIs to the world through the production portal. But then the question is, okay, now what if I'm doing DevOps on my API portal? How do I multi-stage? I thought I'd throw that out there now, so then we can move on to other parts of the.
All right, it's a good one. I'll try and pick that up as we go along. If I remember, when we kind of like, we'll go through now. We'll create a subscription.
Okay.
And then when I get into the guts, it's coming up here on this tab. So first of all, we've got Postman very quickly, and then we've got the API gateway, which is where I can try and answer that question. So here we are. This is my portal. This is the one we've just created, right? We're getting free space biscuits, so it's worth subscribing just for that. If I try and subscribe to the commercial plan first, sorry, I always have to do it like this. Here, so this is going to cost me $10 a month, right? So if I proceed to check out, we get redirected, right? So I've got to pay now for this, but I don't want you to see my credit card details, so I'm not going to do that. We're going to go ahead and do the free one, and I'm going to, again, I have to use my naming convention. And here we go, free, like one, actually, I think probably like 3 now or something. Let's see if I got that right. This one is free. And you remember we added the approval group, so it must be approved before you can use it. Continue. Okay, good. We'll look at your request and get back to you shortly. When I complete, I get a nasty red bar that says, okay, it's requiring approval. Let's jump back quickly, and then we can see that subscription. Here's the one that was pending payment, and I didn't complete that one, of course. But here, this is the one I want to approve so someone can get in. Et voila, it's approved. So in the background, I got an email Could also be getting a notification to like a Slack channel or a Teams channel or something like this. But we've gone ahead and created that there and approved it. So now I've got my authorization key here. So this is the key I want to use. Bounce across quickly. So I'm going quite quickly because I've got to do this in under an hour. Of course, that was the challenge. And I put this token in here. So what am I looking at here? Sorry, just to explain. Yeah, it's the Astronomy Picture of the Day API, which is in the collection Planetary. So that's the NASA API we're calling, and that's upstream. That's the NASA system. It's on the staging, and this is our API gateway that I'm going to bounce across and show you in just a second, right? It's not going to NASA directly. It's going via our API gateway, and it's using our token, right? So this is just a simple demonstration with a bearer token. And I'm going to go ahead and send that one. And everyone cross their fingers and pray that this works. Come on. That's taking a while, huh? All right, let's give it 5 more seconds. Maybe NASA's having a bad day.
Venus and Jupiter are causing all kinds of problems.
I guess so, yeah. I don't know, maybe I can... could not send request. I think it's something more to do with maybe it needs a bit of a refresh. We'll give it one more attempt here. Paste my token in, send it. Yeah, worked. Worth doing a second time. Everyone breathes. The whole API-able team didn't breathe for 30 seconds there. But here we go. So this is talking about black holes and everything. So again, this is coming back from our own API gateway, right? So let's take a look at that in a little bit more detail. So I've done the onboarding, and I'm going to go ahead and pick this one up here. So this is the subscription that I use with the API key that I use, and I can see when it starts and when it ends. And if I want to, I can also, as an administrator, view the key. I can regenerate the keys, etc. So it's all wired up there nicely. Let's go and go to that plan. Then I'm going to show you that plan within the API gateway. Okay, so here we go to that plan, and we use the free plan. So I'm going to go up here and just copy the ID for that plan. Then we should be able to go across to the API gateway. So this is something that you probably all know. I assume you do if you're here listening to this. This is the API gateway from Amazon. This is the API that I was interested in. I'm going to drill down in here, and I'm going to go to usage plans, because a plan in API-able corresponds directly to a usage plan. And voila, I see this usage plan. I click on it, I scroll to the top, and here we go. So people who are eagle-eyed can see that we got this right. The quota is correct at 300, and we said 1-on-1, right? It's the free plan. We give it a description, and you can see that there are 2 APIs. And if you remember rightly, we collected the staging for this product. For the other plan, we set the production one, but for this one, we said, okay, staging environment. So yeah, we did that, but instead of coming here, which is well, not the best user experience, shall we say, we did it within the comfort of our own like product world. So you don't have to be that technical to use this stuff. The other thing that I want to say is when we go down then to this subscription, we drill into the subscription. I've got an identifier here on the subscription, which corresponds directly then to an API key. So if I click API keys, there you go. So I can see that the API key has a direct relationship to the subscription. So if I go into this API key, where am I seeing here? So this is the associated usage plan. But this is how we track, okay, the developer subscription within the Amazon API gateway. the kind of last thing I wanted to show you here was on the authorizer screen. Remember in the beginning when we created the API gateway, I said we were going to use that Lambda script, right? Because we're using the OAuth2 server from APIable, which is actually running on Curity. So we didn't build our own API authentication authorization engine here. We used Curity because we realized it would take us probably another 3 years to build this thing. So we use Curity in the background to generate API keys, etc. And in this case, what you saw as the bearer token was actually a Curity Phantom token, which is already pretty secure, better than an API key, shall we say. So I wanted to mention that. Mariuka's question about, okay, multiple portal with stages and so on. Yeah, it's a good one. And we can do that, right? So what we would do then is you would create a second portal. So you'd have one like staging environment, one production environment. We have coming in Monday's release. We'll put stage here, actually. So you can say this API gateway is then connected to stage. We need a little bit to work on that, but effectively, you can limit then the stage that comes through. Then when you're on the actual product itself, so let's go back to this one. Then when you're on the product itself and you're looking at the API, that list can then be constrained by that stage, for example. I'd like to get into more detail with you, Mariuka. We can do that afterwards, but we can then constrain and say, okay, for this API portal, we only get to see the staging stages, and for the production environment, we only see the production stages. So that would be kind of like one explanation. I'm running into my buffer, but I think I'm pretty much done. The last kind of thing, if we have 2 seconds, is to say the customization. I did hint at the fact you can add a registration wizard, meaning that in order to get into the portal, the customer needs to be approved by somebody. Full API documentation. Again, we just have like the NASA documentation, but here you can add like a full reference, which includes all of your APIs. We have like the getting started guide here on the docs, for example, as well. Really rushing it. Restricted portal access is something, I can just switch on and off if I'm not ready to go live yet. So I can restrict the portal access. I'll leave it open for a little while for you guys to go and play with the Smith demo, which is, Smith demo there. But I can restrict access if I want to restrict access. Monetization is how we were able to charge money. And you saw already I got redirected to a checkout page from Stripe. And that's because I configured an account on Stripe, right? So I already did that before. It takes like 5 minutes. You just need to connect an account there. And then Google Tag Manager is the last thing then, right? So you can say, okay, you connected to Google Tag Manager, then you can be running, any kind of analytics or wherever on the portal that you need to be running. I think that's basically it from my side. To just follow up on the how to kind of reach us. First and foremost, you could, if you wanted to, go to the AWS Marketplace. Feel free to just buy it, right? That's probably the easiest thing to do is just, give us your money. Otherwise, you can also start a free trial as well. So, I've already used my free trial, but there's a free trial, which is a 28-day free trial. Go ahead and do that. It's also a resource on our website under Solutions on Amazon API Gateway, where we give a little bit of information, on what I just went through, basically on, how to connect it, the steps you go through, and the difference between the serverless API portal provided by Amazon and ours. Or if you want to just book a meeting with me, I like to talk, believe it or not. So go ahead and talk. And with that, I'm done on my side. If there were any more open questions, I could field a couple.
I think there. So I put the links that Alan was talking about in the chat in case you want to copy them over and go at your own leisure to Marketplace or go look at some of the other resources. The other question beyond the portal question I saw popping up was more, I think, around the consumer life cycle, which was, if I rephrase it a little bit, how the onboarding is different. I think Mariuka brought it up a little bit, but the concept of tailoring the consumer onboarding life cycle, which you started to get into, the question is, what were some of the lessons learned there in terms of what needed to be done? Because I'm an old B2B guy too, in one of my previous lives, and customer onboarding was everything. It was, big focus for certain parts of the company, especially in B2B marketplaces.
Right.
What made you pull out some of these things, like the registration wizard, and the identity mediation? You built this whole identity mediation and identity management piece in there as an option beyond just the gateway security.
Yeah.
So what were the lessons learned around all that?
Well, I mean, like so many, really. It's bringing it from my past 10 years experience on working on API programs and that pain, basically. For example, one of the biggest things I can say here is that we create a random team name, which you can rename if you want, but we bundle people into teams and share the subscription to the whole team. Because what we found is, working on my previous project, is that one developer getting the API credentials is a bad idea, right? Because they go for 6 weeks to Hawaii or just leave the company, wherever. And then that developer app can't function in the future when the tokens are changed because no other developer has access, right? So we have here, for example, the possibility to add users to this team, or the person can invite other people to the team as well, for example. So I can look at this one and say, I work in a Scrum team, and there can be like 5 of us in that Scrum team, and we all have access to the subscription and by proxy the API keys. Little things like this, right? That when you're working on an API program and you have this pain, we've tried to bake as many of these things as possible. And again, coming back to the onboarding process as well, if I start a subscription to plans, you can see here we've got 1 and 2 done. Very simple case. Okay, and the other plan we had, the payment step as well. But the idea here is that ultimately we can be adding steps to this onboarding process, right? So I'm very happy to work with you guys to discuss, how they are, and we want to make it quite modular. But you can imagine a DocuSign step, for example, where get the customer to programmatically sign the contract that they're okay with the terms and conditions of the portal, right? That could be step number 2 before you get to done. Also, you could be validating an SMS token or so on. So these are the kind of things, when it comes to onboarding, that we get this like wizard thing done. Same way, we didn't look at the subscription, but the registration, but same there as well. We can have customizable registration wizards that you must sign up and accept the terms and conditions before you get access. So hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of lessons learned around managing API consumers and API products and what's changing for the API product manager. So I think we've run out of time, but Alan, this was great for me. This is why this is my favorite job. So thank you. And hopefully this was great for others. Feel free to keep commenting on LinkedIn. Feel free to schedule a conversation with Alan, because Alan does like to talk and he's a good conversationalist. And hopefully we see you again soon.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks from my side as well. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, it's quite a lot of work we've done there, so I really hope you enjoy it. But thanks, guys. Bye-bye.